welcome back to another MaizePlus tutorial video, and today we're going to be having a look at some of the additional feed components you can buy or make with MaizePlus. We are going to be having a look at CCM and grain mix, which we will be using the starter mill for, and then we're going to have a look at beet pulp silage, brewer's grain and brewer's grain silage. I'm just going to cover what they are and how you make them today. I will cover their individual uses for the different animals in each of the videos for the different animal types. So if you found that you've got animals and you need some CCM, this is how you make it. And we're going to start with CCM. So let's go into the shop and have a look at the starter mill, which is under miscellaneous. 34,000 pounds, needs 280 horsepower. Be aware of that. You do need a pretty beefy power unit to run this. In FS19 there was a really nice little mod which was like a 400 horsepower auxiliary power unit thing, which I used with this, but in FS22 at the moment, if you haven't got one, you're going to need to lease a big tractor. Got some wheel options which I'm not too worried about. The important things are you can set this up as either a CCM mill or a grain mill, depending on what you're trying to do. That's configurable once you've brought it in your workshop. We're going to start off with it as a CCM mill, which is what I have brought out on the map. The other thing that you may want to use if you're making CCM is some Luprasil, which is under pallets right at the end here. It's quite expensive. It's 8,000 litres a pallet, but that does give you a bonus to the amount of CCM you get. So I'm going to buy a pallet of that as well, and we'll get out and we will have a look at making some CCM. So we have our pallet of Luprasil here that we are going to get loaded up first. The starter mill has a really handy little spot for it just in here. So we'll jump in the Kubota skid steer because it's a nice chance to use this and get that put into the mill, and then we'll get some corn to put in there. The bonus from Luprasil is 30%, which is it's quite nice. It doesn't use a huge amount, so it's definitely worth doing. It is expensive, but you're probably only ever going to need to buy one pallet of this, at least for quite a long time. So yeah, definitely I think worth the extra cost, and I think this is so cool. I can my driving skills are not the best, as regulars will know, and I should probably have done that with super strength, but there we go. So that is the Luprasil IBC under the auger. Just get this out of the way, and then if you run up to it, it also has a handy strap to hold it in place, and then just R to fill it up. Something to bear in mind with the mill in either configuration is that if you've got the tractor running, the auger out and a trailer under it, it will instantly start to empty. So less of a problem for CCM, but if you're trying to make grain mix, then you really want to have the auger closed while you fill it up, because otherwise it's just going to pass straight through. So let's go grab some corn. I have some corn being harvested here handily. It is corn that you would harvest with a combine that you want rather than with a forage harvester. So we'll just grab some of that as we'll just let him make the turn on the headland. And then I'm putting it into an auger wagon because that's an easy way of emptying it into the mill. You could use a bucket, you could fill it from a silo, lots of options. I just chose to use an auger wagon. So the other, if you want to get corn without growing it, if you only want a little bit, there is a Doika buy point built into MaizePlus that you can place down, which lets you buy your corn. You can also buy wheat, oats and barley from there to make grain mix, and we'll be doing that in a little while. So we'll just get, there we go, that's probably enough corn for what we need to do, so we can just leave that combine to run. we will go put this into the mill. So that is the Doika buy point, which lets you buy. It lets you buy a lot of the Doika branded food, but also wheat, oats, barley, and corn. And if you go into the construction menu, it's under, I believe it's under silos. No, containers. There we go. Yep, so it's under containers. Costs a pound. So yep, plus a bit of terrain editing fees. And we'll come on to the Beet pulp and Brewer's grain ones for those in a moment. So let's get our corn. In fact, I haven't placed it over there. Let's get our corn into the mill. And then we'll get this made into fresh CCM. You can also ferment the CCM in a bunker, and I believe different animals with different feeding options either want it raw or fermented. So we'll get some milled and we'll tip it in the pit and get it fermented. There we go. So yeah, you see instantly it starts to empty. So I'm just going to let this run for a bit. It's not particularly fast, and I will be back with you in a little while. I've left that to mill the corn into raw CCM, so we'll get that tipped into a bunker silo now. I just had a quick look, and in fact you cannot feed it unfermented, so yeah, you will want to ferment it before you can feed it to your animals. And we have some of the MaizePlus bunker silos here, so it works with any bunker silo, but it's part of MaizePlus. There are some handy size small-ish bunkers in the pack for doing things like this. So let's just get this tipped and then we'll cover it over and ferment it. And I have the case there to compact it, but I might just use the trailer. At least to get a start on it. But pretty much the same as everything else in terms of compacting. I think we'll jump in the case now to finish that off, and then we'll have a look at grain mix. So I've got the Weber DCS 180 on the back, which is a awesome silage compactor. Is it even going to fit in the bunker? Nope, it is not. Could have tested that first, shouldn't I? We'll just use the Deutz instead. So I'm going to get this compacted and I'll be back with you when it's almost. And it was pretty much instant, if I'm honest, because there's not much there and this compactor is really good. So if we jump out, we can blanket that over and then skip ahead a month and that will be fermented. And there we have our fermented CCM. So there you go, that is making CCM. Now let's have a look at making some grain mix. Okay, so let's have a look at grain mix now. So we're going to buy ourselves a fresh starter mill just to show you the setup for that. You can do it in the workshop on your farm as well, but we're just going to go for a grain mill. And as I said earlier, if you are doing this with a bucket or an auger or a belt system, then make sure that you have the auger on the mill closed until you've got your mix, because it will start to empty if it's over a trailer. And we are going to try and use the Doika buy point to do this, just to show you that at the same time. So grain mix, we can get it under here, we will do that. Like a glove. So grain mix is a mixture of wheat, barley and oats, and is again a component of many of the animal feeding options. You need at least 50% wheat, and then 10% of at least 10% of barley or oats, and then any mixture within that will get you your grain mix. And you can see on the F1 menu we've got the mixing ratio there at the bottom. So we're going to start off with some wheat and get that in there. So I'm going to aim for just over 50% of wheat, and just watching the fill bar at bottom until it hits somewhere over 50% basically, and then we'll put in a bit of the other two and we'll be good. Right, there we go, 53%, 8,000 litres. So let's chuck in some barley. There we go, and some oats. And once we get in the green bars, we will be good, and we have our grain mix. And it's as simple as that. You can then use that as a component in TMR or to directly feed animals. That's grain mix, really easy. Obviously you can harvest the grains yourself. You can fill the mill with a bucket, an auger wagon, a belt system, a silo, or a buy point like this. But next we will have a look at beet pulp, I think. But much like the Deuter feeds, there is a buy point for beet pulp. It is currently the only place you can get beet pulp from. So if we go into containers, and there it is, the green one is the beet pulp one. We have one placed on the map already, so we're going to fill up with some of that. Beet pulp is a product that you can either use directly in animal feeding, so in your TMR mix or some of the animal feed options, or you can ferment it and use it as a fermented product. Choice is pretty much up to you. And I've placed this really badly, I think, with the sheep pen next to me. You will see the sheep pen in future videos when we look at feeding the sheep. So there we go. I'll fill up with that. See, the trailer is filling up with beet pulp. You don't need a full trailer because this is just an example, and where it's relevant for animal feeding I will cover that in the specific videos. So same as with the CCM, we're going to zip it into one of the silos we've got here, and we'll do Brewer's grain at the same time. So let's get this tipped. Not a huge amount. And then, like the beet pulp, there is a buy point for the Brewer's grain. It is the orange one here. Maybe place one just here, partly because it will be easier for me to drive under. And again, Brewer's grain is another one of those elements that you can either feed directly or mix directly into a feed mixture like TMR, or you can ferment first. Then, as the same as beet pulp, we just buy some, and then I will take it over to ferment. And like all of the silages in the game, it takes a month to ferment. You need to cover it and compact it and cover it first. And again, currently the only place you can get Brewer's grain from is from the buy point. Let's get that tipped. And then we'll do a little bit of compacting with the doits. So if you are not familiar with MaizePlus, this video is one of a series of videos that I have on the channel. And if English is not your first language, then the Alien Pool, one of the farming agency team, that created MaizePlus, also has a series of videos on his channel. The link for that will be below, and they will be in German. So if German is your preferred language, you can go and check those out. We'll just very quickly get this compacted, and as you can see, as I said, this compactor does a really good job of very quickly compacting, particularly with such a small amount. And just like any other making of silage, we just hit R to cover that up, and then we'll wait a month. They will be fermented and we'll see what comes out. Just finishing off the last little bit of fermenting, and there we go. We get the message that the bunker silo is fermented, and then as with the last ones, just the R key to open them up, and there we go. We have some fermented brewer's grain and some fermented beet pulp, and that's that. Really, that is how to make CCM, how to make grain mix, beet pulp and brewer's grain. So if you found this useful, please click the like button. If you've got questions on this or anything else to do with MaizePlus, there's a playlist with a whole load of tutorials in, so check that out, or leave me a comment below, or there is a link below for the MaizePlus Discord. And if you're not already, subscribe to the channel, because that would really help me out. I will catch you next time.